Hey everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of A Hangout of Witches. It's that time again. Guys, we've been doing this for 2 months. This is the fourth episode. We've been talking about a discovery of witches. I can't believe that we're at the end of the season already. And we have nothing, I don't know what we're going to talk about this show. It's going to be a long time before we talk about the show again, unless we, do book club or something. I'm Beth, by the way. I'm having a LaCroix and some chocolate graham crackers. And everybody else say hello. Nikki, why don't you start?
Hey everyone, I am Nikki. I'm drinking the Target LaCroix, which is the Simply Balanced. I'm also having some goldfish, and I am thrilled that this is the last episode and we've made it to the finale, but I'm very sad we're going to have whatever the Droughtlander version of Witches is. But to celebrate, I wore my Witches Fascinator headband from Halloween. So clearly I'm ready. All right, Emily, your turn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emily, and I'm having some peanut M&Ms, and I'm drinking some white peach and jasmine flower Blossom Brothers wine spritzer. So that's what I'm having before dinner. Jana.
Hi, I'm Jana. I am eating bark thins, which are delicious, and I am drinking the Coors version of LaCroix called the Coors Light, because everyone basically says it's like water.
The Coors version.
Yes, the Coors brand sparkling water. And I'm really excited about tonight. I'm sad it's the last one, but I just watched this last episode today. I'm really excited about it. It was my favorite. So I've got lots of good things to say.
It's the last episode is your favorite?
Yeah. I was like, I am here for this. I could find very little to critique.
Oh gosh. We may not be on the same page. That's exciting.
It'll be a lively discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, it was exciting. So, and they packed a lot in. So I think there's a lot to say.
Maybe that's why I liked it. Like, things were happening quickly.
I have a very specific story editing pacing type problem with this one. It feels like I'm critiquing Outlander all over again because I feel very specifically about this one choice that they made in the last episode. But we'll get to it in a minute. Episode 7 is first. And I feel like this is where the season kind of takes a turn. We leave Europe. We go to Madison, and the majority of it takes place there, other than the few flashes we get back in Venice. And let's talk about Madison a little bit, and Sarah and Em. I love the Madison set. I love the Madison flyover with the drone. I love the way it looks. But it doesn't quite look fall enough, except at their house. What season is it?
They need some more dead grass. I was like, wait, it's way too green. There's not enough haystacks and scarecrows for my liking.
It doesn't matter how many pumpkins you have on the porch. It does not look like fall there. Or a pretty fall.
And is that exterior even in America, or was that a UK set they found somewhere?
I was just going to say, it felt like it was definitely filmed in the UK. They didn't even try for an exterior in the US, even for reference.
Yeah, it is. I think it's in Cardiff is where they filmed it. But even the flyover, while they're going to there's no orange trees, there's no yellow trees. There's at one point in the 8th episode, they're all kind of standing outside on the driveway, and there's a little fence, and there's just a dead branch stuck in the driveway to show some sort of with brown leaves on it, just to be
hey guys, it's fall.
And she even mentions how Madison is so great in the fall, and I wanted to be do better.
Is it though?
I was upset about it, actually.
Yeah, New England in the fall is gorgeous. The trees look neon, the colors are beautiful. Yeah, they should have just pulled some New England stock footage or something and just threw it in just to set the stage.
When was it filmed? Anybody know?
I feel like summer looking at those images.
And it's too wet. England gets too much rain for it to be that green. So
yeah, like dry and crackly. It needed more crackly times.
yeah.
I do love these episodes because I love Sarah and Em so much. And I wanted to talk about them. They're introduced to Matthew. And of course, Sarah comes out wearing her pink pussy hat, which I thought was such a great, like, little homage to the Women's March and just the kind of women they are, like their bumper stickers and stuff. But I love their relationship. What do you guys like or dislike about the two of them?
I think one of my favorite things in the book is when when Diana's describing her aunt, she said they had a bumper sticker that says, "I'm a witch and I vote." And I was like, oh, it's too perfect. It's just good. And then she shows up in that hat in the show, and I was like, of course they were marching. Like she probably made that herself and for all her little witch buddies to wear as well.
Like
I love
to take
them.
down to the craft fair.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're just such interesting characters. Like I was hoping they would maybe do some flashbacks, like more so than things that involve Diana, but maybe down the road, who knows? They're just really cool people, it seems.
I love Valerie so much.
Yeah, she's so good. And she's like a nice juxtaposition to Sarah, who's just so like hardcore and beat you up.
They're such a great couple just in the way they balance each other out and support each other, but
yeah, they're totally opposite.
Oh, yeah, so very different.
Yeah.
But yet together they make this great team, and you can see like just the history and the love that's there. And
my favorite scene,
they're a solid couple.
My favorite scene of theirs is on the couch after Em has told Diana that she kind of knew she was spellbound and that Rebecca did it. And Sarah is so upset that Rebecca didn't trust her with that information. And it's such a beautiful couple moment. She's like, honey, look at me, like, talk to me about it. It's not your fault. Like, it was very natural and organic. And then just like watching Sarah kind of fall to pieces on her shoulder and it just was so sweet. I mean, it's my absolute favorite scene of the two of them, but I love them throughout this entire section. And wish that we actually got more of them, like you said, like in flashback, or just more of them playing house, even if it's just welcoming all of these other creatures into their house. I wish we had a little bit more.
And seeing them not in conflict too, because it seems like shit is always going down when we see them. So either like they're at odds or they're in a bad situation. I'd like to see a little more lesbian witch version of Ridge shit, I guess.
Yeah.
Just them together as a couple in their witchy haunted house.
Madison Coven shit.
Yeah. I would say that would be my one critique, is there was nothing, like they were there and they were sort of together, but there was never really any sort of affection that was like hand holding, or they didn't have any signs of affection that were any sort of like kisses or anything else that really actually cemented that they were more than roommates, if that makes sense. That if you look back, watching it again, it doesn't really, it says that they're her aunts and things like that. So I guess a little bit more relationship things I think would have been nice. So.
But don't they like show them waking up in bed together early on? Yeah, they wake up in bed together. Like Diana calls in the middle of the night there, like early morning there, and they're in bed.
Oh yeah, so, earlier in the season.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay. And that's like,
yeah, I mean, you're right. It's they totally could have gone way farther with that aspect of it than like they did. I agree.
Touching, hugging, like a little bit more affection. That's all I'm saying, is they could have done a little bit more with how they blocked them and how they moved them throughout the scene. And even during the fighting and the, look at me, there could have been more touchy-feely. And I think that was a little bit more pushed to the side for the effect. That's what got cut from the story to make way for everything else. So. Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe why I like the couch scene the most. They felt very lived in couple to me at that point. Like,
right.
People that had been together for so long that maybe the holding hand, kissing kind of thing is not what you do when you're having those conversations or when people are coming over. But like, that one, you couldn't deny that they were in love with each other and had been in love with each other for a really long time, that Emily knew Sarah really well, like knew that she was beating herself up over what had happened and how she was feeling about it, and knew how to bring her out and get her to confide in her and to kind of deal with what was going on. So that's why I love that scene. But you're right. There is a little bit of like a lack of demonstrative relationship stuff between the two of them. What about Sarah versus Matthew? This is my favorite dynamic, and I wish we'd seen a little bit more of them like tiffing at each other a little bit.
I wish they would have been in that room under the stairs or whatever it is in the book, and how they kind of go back and forth with each other, and just little, more rows or, tete-a-tetes. But I love that. That was so fun to watch, and it was cool to see Sarah kind of get to teach a little bit. I would have liked a little more of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole thing was just rushed, so we didn't really get to sit and enjoy the whole Madison vibe.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they did show us was wonderful.
Yeah.
And not being a cat person, I do want to shout out the cat, because I love Tabitha. I thought the interactions when Matthew gets there, I thought that was great.
So since you're a Doctor Who fan, I've never watched Doctor Who. How is the Alex Kingston vibe in this show? Like, I know she's one of the big, favorites from Doctor Who. And so like, now that there's 2 episodes that are really focused a lot on her, like, what's the vibe in terms of like who she is and how she acts in this show and how it relates to people who already love her?
I mean, she definitely is, on Doctor Who, she's got this crazy gunslinging, fly by the seat of her pants and do what she wants. So it's a little bit of the same character, in that she's going to be run off and, not think, because she's going to do whatever it is that she wants. So I saw some similarities in that. So that's why I loved, and I thought that she was perfect casting for this. So I was thrilled when I saw that. So she plays River Song on Doctor Who. So seeing her, some of those character things come over, I thought it was great.
That's cool.
Okay, but remember when she was on ER?
I know. I was
I was trying to I'm like, all I see is like her as an ER doctor, just like, and she was really similar, like high energy and kind of not, maybe frenetic is the word I'm looking for, just kind of like that. And I saw similarities there.
What did we think of her American accent?
It was good.
I didn't even notice it.
I didn't notice it.
Yeah. And good in that way, because I wasn't aware of it. Like Teresa's, I'm aware of.
Right. There was one line she said that caught me off guard, and I can't remember it now, but I was just like, oh, that stood out. Like, because I did a double take and had to rewind, but now I don't remember what it was.
There was a little flashback with the little girl who plays Diana, and she had kind of some sort of slip with the accent too. And I was like, oh yeah, they filmed this in the UK. Like, I totally...
Like the little girl did?
Yeah, the little girl did, just very quickly. And I was like reminded, but how wonderfully they had all done until that little slip or made me remember.
That's a good segue into the flashbacks. Let's talk about those.
Yeah.
We learn a lot in the 7th episode about Diana's past and her parents and the kind of patchwork jackets her dad likes to wear, and how Owen Teale, aka Peter Knox, really didn't do really good job on his youth makeup. Like,
that wig though.
He looks younger in the 1st and 2nd season of Game of Thrones than he did in this dimly lit scene with a dark wig on, and he's still like, you can just see the bags under his eyes. I'm like, I love you, Owen Teale, but they just did you no favors.
What was he in Game of Thrones?
Sir Alistair Thorne.
Thorne.
In my notes, I put Peter Knox's wig with a huge exclamation point with a heart. was like, what? It literally was like just like sat upon his head, and he was like
a crown of
don't
thorns.
lose it when he turned to look at the camera.
I just felt so bad. Like, I didn't notice it the first time I saw it, but then I did a rewatch of Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, oh, 10 years ago, he didn't have those bags.
No.
It's a lot. That's really sad. Oh, age, it sucks. But like, we learn a lot, and yet I still feel like we don't know. Are we not supposed to know why her parents chose to spellbind her? Like, why they decided? I guess the spellbinding makes sense, but their leaving doesn't. Like, where are they going? They know they're not coming back. The look on their face is like, this is the last time we're going to see all of them.
They're going to, was it Africa or wherever they end up being killed? And it was to figure out some more stuff, but I can't remember what exactly they figure out while there. Or was it even revealed?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it's in the books, but super not in the show at all.
No.
But played like we were supposed to know. At least in this episode, it seemed played like we should know that they know they're going to die. And we don't. And we don't know what's going to happen. And it's crazy to me a little bit. Did you guys feel at sea with it?
Yeah, it's made it look like they knew that they were going to their death.
Or at least that the mom did.
Yeah. And in the book, they went and they died in Africa, but in the TV series, they died in someplace else. And I don't remember where that was.
Like Eastern Europe or something?
It was in a different place. And I was like, oh, they changed that. And I'd forgotten that. But one thing the spellbound scene, that was interesting how they filmed it, because I did not expect it to look like that. That was, I was like, okay, that's an interesting thing. The whole thing about the time walking, does anybody remember, did they actually discover that Stephen was a time walker in book 1? I really thought that didn't happen in book 2, but I read them so quickly and close together that might be why I'm misremembering.
Yeah, they do. Valerie, whatever her name is. She, like in the show, she talks about it in the book.
Okay, because I thought it didn't happen until book 2.
I think the same thing happens in the book, where Matthew looks at something and he's like, this shouldn't be in this good of a condition for how old it is. And she tells him what it is.
Got it.
I think it's the same series of conversations, like when the house spits out the page from the Book of Life and the puppet and all that stuff. I think it's the same series of conversations that lead to that information.
The spellbinding scene made me think, so if they can do that to their child, could they do that to another witch? Like, why didn't they just do that to like a Peter Knox? Or do they have to have some sort of power over him? Like, it brought up a lot of questions. I was like, let's just spellbind the bad guy. Like, why are we doing our child?
Like, I feel like you have to have some sort of consent or something in order to do it, because
or be able to incapacitate him. I mean, because even with her daughter, like, they had to make sure she laid very still, and
and she didn't like the feeling, or at least it showed. Like, she was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And if Knox was on the congregation at the time, like, I'm sure there would have been a ton of blowback.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Pat, in the YouTube chat, just says Peter Knox is way too powerful, I'm guessing, to be spellbound. Like, maybe Diana's power is so like nascent, like it's so early and so baby. It's just the buddings of all of her power that it was easier to spellbind her. Whereas like someone like Peter or Satu or whatever, they just can't. They would be able to undergo that. She's saying yes. So thank you, Pat.
I remember in the book, Diana would time walk when she was little, like, and and she would end up someplace else and they didn't know where she was going. And so there were other reasons why they had to, because they were like, okay, we've got to stop this because we don't know where you're disappearing off to. So
it's just, they make it seem like Diana is, especially even as a child, this incredibly powerful witch, and it seems surprising that they could do that to her. I just want to weaponize the spell binding and for them to be able to use it in a later later episode.
It would be really cool if some of these flashbacks introduced us to young Diana in that way. Like instead of just being the explanatory vignettes in this one episode, like if we had, seen her kind of throughout, maybe even exhibiting some of that stuff as a young child, like as she started using witch water or whatever, we might have seen something happen to her as a child using witch water.
Right.
And seeing like her parents' fear or worry or concern, like so that we know it was going to lead up to them maybe having to do something.
Right.
And
Or
the
like
conversation wanting her.
Yeah,
and
I was about to say,
trying-
seeing them kind of close in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been great if they'd had another episode or two for them to do just a bottle episode of like Steven and the mom, just like history of that whole thing and Diana maybe, and that's all they show. And then they go back to the regular storyline.
Yeah.
Because what we miss is Diana trying to get, I'm going to call it whatever, like a quinceañera or the first communion or whatever it is in the witch, you're laughing, but whatever it is when
I get what you're saying.
the bell, when in the book, when she's supposed to ring the bell, and she can't make it happen and she doesn't understand why. And everything with the Madison Coven and how, I know they cut out the things in this show with the Madison Coven and running into all those people. And I understand why they did that. But if we got that in that episode, like you said, Nikki, something like that, so we could understand what that is. But, I think that's one thing that would have helped understand where is this urgency coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say the same thing.
It's
Jamie
a really
on
good
Twitter.
one. You share it.
Okay, so Jamie on Twitter says, I'm curious, why didn't her parents didn't just time walk instead of going off to their impending death? And it makes total sense. Like Steven could have just taken them all back in time and like actually trained Diana in her powers instead of spellbinding her. And then when she was able to control them.
Good
Well, maybe
point, Jamie.
the danger to her is not contingent on Peter Knox and that iteration of the Covenant. The danger to her is her own power being something she can't control, like the time walking without her knowing it. So they could time walk somewhere, even into the future, but she's still left being a small child with exorbitantly ridiculous powers that she can't control, and they can't necessarily hem her in enough to control them, no matter where they are.
If they knew they were going off to their death, though, why didn't just the two of them time walk?
That's why I feel like what they were leaving to do is super unclear.
Yeah.
And in the show, just by their faces, they make it look like they know they're going off to their death, but maybe they just think they're going off to do work that's dangerous or work that might cause them to come under suspicion or, and they're just worried about it. But their faces are so pained.
Or there's still residual guilt about the spell binding on Diana.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's true. We don't know what the time frame is between the spell binding and when they're leaving. Maybe it happened the night before or something, and we don't know. Is there going to be any after effects that they're now leaving in Emily's hands and we don't know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
This brings up a really great programming note that I totally forgot at the beginning. If you want to tweet with us, it's hashtag a hangout of witches. We just tweeted it earlier. Use that and we can talk to you, or join the YouTube chat. That also works as well. All right. Anyway.
Thank you for that little
PSA.
I do want to talk about some of the things that were happening in Madison that I felt in this episode that they're painful for me. There's just something about, there's a little bit of cheese in this episode. And like Diana running away from Emily and Sarah like a little girl, like, I don't like this anymore. And like
flinging her scarf off.
Yes. And like stopping at a tree, and that tree's perfectly like got her parents' initials in it or whatever. And you're just like, what? And then he comes over and she's like, they tied it to my need for you. And I was like, oh. I mean, the cheese hurt so bad I could feel my knuckles on the cheese grater. That's how bad the cheese was hurting me. Oh, I just don't like it.
Forced romance.
It's just, I think it's just the way I mean, the dialogue itself isn't good, but also kind of the way that Teresa delivers it is very flat and just doesn't sell the dialogue at all.
Yeah, it's like you can watch Matthew deliver some cheeseball lines, and for them, like 80% of the time, you're like, okay, I buy it. Like, I know that's cheesy, but at least you gave it like a try to like not cheese it up. And then she's like, I'm just gonna, I'm just delivering it. I got a nurse in a second.
They tied it to my need for you.
Yeah.
It's like there's no inflection.
Or is it her acting?
What?
Her what?
Is it poor writing or is it her acting?
I think it's
a
both.
combination.
No, because there are times when she says things and it's her delivery that I'm like, that could have been a lot better. Or that line makes sense. It comes straight from the book, and in my imagination, it's very different. So I think sometimes it's her, but then sometimes, yeah, it is the writing, but it's not as bad as it could be, I don't think.
Yeah, it's like certain times when you hear very specific lines from books and then you hear it on a TV show or a movie and you're like, that is definitely not how I imagined it or how it even looks in the book, like Outlander, Twilight, like all of there's tons of like yikes moments that come straight from the books.
But couple that with, we want to talk about the romance, like even if we feel like it's forced, the danger scene where she's running and he's like, you're not doing well enough or whatever. And then she's like, okay, let's think about that night where you like told me to walk away. And it's kind of cheesy, but that whole scene really works for me. And like leading into the love scene really works for me. And I don't feel like it's forced. And maybe it's just the soundtrack, but I like it. And I mean, it does feel very Vampire Diaries, Twilight.
There were some hard moments of like Twilight. I was like, as if you could outrun
Twilight.
me.
Yeah.
So Twilight.
In the last episode too. We'll get there, but I was really feeling the Twilight vibes.
Yeah, and I mean, that scene that they cut out of Twilight where they're in the forest and he bites her finger and they cut it out because like it wasn't, I don't know, but everybody was like, the cut scene in the forest where he's wearing the white jacket. And you're just like, that's what that scene reminded me of. But yes, it has Twilight vibes, but also I super buy it. And maybe that's just because I'm used to Twilight and Vampire Diaries, and it was an homage to those in a lot of ways. But it was more believable to me than the heartfelt declarations that come out of Teresa's mouth or Diana's mouth about him.
Yeah, and they have fun doing that. It's more believable, the entire scene, than they tied me to you sort of thing.
So the love scene, there's been a little bit of controversy in the fandom about people wondering whether or not it actually looks, whether or not they had sex in that scene or didn't. If you haven't read the books, they have not had full penetrative, could have a baby sex at this point. And what did you guys think? Did you think it was too much, too little, too obscure?
It was hot, first off. It was nice and hot. I didn't get the vibe that he would have been closer to her. There would have been like face to face if that's what they were trying to show. I don't think it was that. So calm down, fans. You'll get your penetration at a later date. Season 2.
I mean, I think that you're right. Like if it had meant to be like sex,
they would have had them together like this.
Would have been at the same level instead of him down south.
Yeah,
which is what was happening. Which was I thought it was obvious, but again,
fans are fun.
Fandoms are the funnest.
They're the best.
So there's other stuff going on in episode 7. We get Domenico talking to Juliet and prompting her to go after the two of them. We get kind of this cool moment where you root a little bit for Juliet, like as she leaves Gerbert and the church and she just like walks off in her awesome red cape. Like
that was fantastic. And you really want to, like you said, root for her. And you're like, yes, empower the woman.
Yeah, but we can't because she's like a
murderous. Empower the psychotic murdering woman. Not so much.
Like I said, just for a
She
second.
did leave.
Just the murderous harpy getting some of her own. But I love Domenico. Like, I want Domenico to be the head of the congregation. I want him to like get all the girls. Or boys, whatever he's into. And I'm like so super into him as a character at this point. Like, I like how he's kind of orchestrated some things on his own behalf. And I haven't read book 3, so I don't know if any of that comes to fruition, but I like him at this point.
Yeah, I like that he's pulling strings, that he's doing a little bit of work behind the scenes, that he's not just Chabert's puppet. And as we see, he votes to keep in Baldwin as the leader. So clearly he's thinking a few steps ahead of whatever's going on. So we better see some more of him. And he's hot. He's lovely, dark complected, and his hair, and the actor, whoever he may be.
He reminds me of like Mediterranean Tobias Menzies. He actually like pauses and speaks in the same fashion that Tobias Menzies speaks. I was very into it.
His name is Greg Chillin.
I
And then you ruined it. Greg Chillin.
Okay, his last name is actually Chillin Gurian. So I think he is personal details just say UK, but I think he's either Indian, Pakistani, something like that, but it doesn't say much more than that.
Well, he needs a better agent.
He was on the UK version of Being Human, but I can't tell what he was, if he was a werewolf or a vampire on that as well. So,
well, he could play Tobias Menzies' half brother at some point if he wants. Episode 7 ends with the page of the Book of Life coming out of the walls of the house, with Marcus and Miriam being there as well. And Miriam gives a little homage to like later on saying it smells odd, but she can't place what it is exactly. And then Diana and Matthew practicing her defense stuff or whatever, and her running into Juliet. Blind man's bluff style.
Can I just say how much I love the house and its enchantment?
Yes.
It creates an extra room or 2 or 5. It reveals things. We'll get to what else it reveals in a second. But I just love the house.
Yeah.
And the still room. We saw the still room when Em was teaching Diana.
Room. That's what it's called.
Yeah, the still room. And when Sarah is teaching and they're practicing things in there, and that part of the set, I think they did a fantastic job on, and I just sort of nerded out over that. And I love what they did with that and how they have portrayed the house as its own character. I think they did a great job on that.
Definitely. So I find the end of this episode good for a cliffhanger, but also annoying. Like, I don't think that she would run into Juliet like that. Matthew's not that far away.
He would have known.
Why does it take him so long to come in there? Like,
and he would have sensed her. He would have smelled her.
Nothing about that makes sense to me.
Diana
wouldn't make sense in the book either. It was kind of the same vibe, right? They just run into her out in the woods.
Yeah.
It's just, certain dumb, convoluted stuff to make a conflict. But what I really didn't like is how they ended. It was nice as a cliffhanger, but then how they started episode 8.
Yes.
And then it takes 20 minutes to resolve, and then they go to the opening credits. And I was like, what the? You took too long. You should have forgotten about those credits. It was a weird choice.
It wasn't 20 minutes. It was about 7, I think. That's the problem.
Really long.
This is my problem with this episode. This was my major issue. So I feel like that whole thing is very strangely edited. It is a little bit longer than 7 minutes. I'm being facetious. It's a little bit longer. But they've stopped doing where Matthew has the voiceover thing at the beginning. They didn't do it in episode 7. And I'm assuming so they don't have to do it in episode 8, right? Because they want to get right into this thing with Juliet. But there's a lot of that that's super odd, like her making them kiss. She wants to see what that looks like. How did he not hear her coming there? How did Miriam and Marcus not hear what was going on? The maiden mother crone prayer and then the prayer back to the goddess. No one has prayed to the goddess this entire show. I thought all of a sudden we were praying to the seven because I had no idea what was going on. And then like the goddess comes from nowhere and gives her this like tunnel of invisibility so that she can do what she needs to do, or impermeability. And I'm just left thinking, this is happening so quickly. All of this stuff is really, this is kind of the major tension of of this episode. Like, or it should be like Juliet is come to kill him or her or both. Matthew is feeding on Diana, which could potentially kill Diana. He's about to die. And and the credits haven't even rolled yet. All that happens quickly.
Yeah.
And that in contrast, the torture of Satu, it goes on for most of an episode and nothing important happens. Like you don't learn anything, but this has a ton of implications. Like her sacrifice to the goddess is a huge implication. How she called the witch fire, and how it kills Juliet. Like, how does that kill a vampire?
Right.
How Matthew can be killed.
Him.
Yeah, like
how Matthew can be killed. That made no sense to me.
Right. Exactly. He gets 2 wounds and he's dead after 1,500 years. She incapacitates him with battle with like a she just traps at his neck a little bit, gashes his neck, and then does something to his heart that you can't even see. And then how Diana's blood can heal him like that. Like, was that the goddess or is that something specific about Diana? But then it's over and done with and she's in bed and when the episode like officially starts. It's a very weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah, especially considering in the book, not to be that person, but the whole Juliet confrontation is massive. Like the fire like takes out such a huge area. It is a really huge deal. And that fire was so lame. It was like a poof. I like that it was the bow and arrow, which clearly we need to, lean into that narrative for her. But it was so lame. And then exactly what you said, it was like it brought up so many questions that they had never even approached and didn't even try to answer.
No.
And then the Marcus and Miriam not hearing any of this. They weren't that far away. How could they not hear or sense Juliet in the barn, hear any of the motions or anything? I mean, that's what I was just watching again because I knew that there was, when you joined and I was like, when you came on and I was like, this is bugging me so badly that I was like, there's so much that I have to say about this. That's where I was really annoyed by that part of it. So
why do you think they made this choice? I mean, like, especially like I'm saying, like in relation to the Satu torture scene, which is way too long in my mind. Like, why is this not taken? Why is there not more tension with this scene? And why does it not take more time? Like maybe if they had done the conventicle or whatever it's called, like where all 9 creatures are together in the house. Maybe if they had done that prior to Juliet coming or something, like made Juliet coming kind of the climax of the last episode and let the denouement be them going out and time walking. I don't know. Just seems weird to me.
It was some like weird, however they broke some of these main conflicts and storylines over the last like couple episodes were just weird choices, especially considering all that they're going to do to the storyline. I think they just ran into like, oh crap, we have to finish this entire thing and we have to have Juliet show up and we got to teach her to time walk and we got to have the demon show up in Madison and we got to do this whole voting thing with the congregation.
Yeah.
And then like they were just like, we got to jam everything in. Episode 8, we're done.
And maybe they were only given 8 episodes. Like they could only do this many episodes. That's all they were given. So they had to force it all in. I don't know.
Yeah, but move some of the conflict back. They were not in Madison long enough for as many
Agree.
storylines and plot points that need to happen there. Like, cut
this,
that Sept-Tour stuff shorter.
Yeah.
Cut, like, all of that congregation, like you said, Sato and her going and rescuing that witch, and like all these other random storylines that we don't even know take place in the first book.
And like, put this Satu stuff in, I hate to like harp on it, but like put it in context. Like, have her torture Diana and then do the whole congregation searching for her, like putting her on trial in the same episode.
Agree.
Because that could be at any time. So put it all together so that we're not like overwhelmed by the torture. My God, I just wanted to it was too long. And then, you know, just figure out how to maneuver Juliet. Because I think that they could have like gotten rid of Juliet as a character altogether if it wasn't for the goddess aspect of this episode. So the thing that happens with the goddess is like super important later on, right?
Yeah.
So they had to get that in there. And I feel like, I don't know, like that's fine. I think Juliet as a character is fine. And I think that that's okay. I just wish that it had been a more protracted scene of danger. Have Marcus and Miriam not there yet, or have them having taken Sophie and Nathaniel somewhere and they're not, you know, where
they pull up during the middle of that.
Yeah.
Like a little bit more believable. And they should have had Em and Sarah mention the goddess farther back.
Show somebody praying to the goddess at some point so that we know what the hell is going on, even if it's just like a rando witch. Like, we needed to know what was happening and we just didn't.
That there's not the traditional religions that we, you know, in Judeo-Christian have. They understand what this is. So,
yeah. And I can overlook the terrible CGI happening behind Diana or Teresa when she's praying to the goddess, and I literally laughed out loud. I put, Diana making a deal with the goddess made me LOL. Like, I was laughing. It looks so cheesy.
And the appearance of the knife that you're like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Where'd that come from?
What
like
is the
some
point?
Like bone knife.
Okay, so what does this mean? This is the sacrifice that I must make? You know.
I wonder if it's this. I mean, does the knife matter? Because I'm sure she could have found something in that barn to cut her wrist with.
Well, Matthew has sharp teeth. He could have just bit her.
Right. He does bite her neck. That's how it actually works.
So why? What was the point of the knife?
Right. I don't know.
They're jamming a lot of lore in with like no payoff.
Yes. And then there's Matthew, who says things in this episode that just kill me. Like, she's convalescing in bed, getting a transfusion or whatever. And he's like, well, if Juliet can find us, you know, like, you're literally at Diana's home. You went to your home and then you went to her home. You're not very good at hide and seek. Like, you are not good at hiding or putting somebody away where they need to not be found. Like, figure it out. It kills me. He's like, I can't believe she found this here.
Well, I thought you were going to say the line about the DNA when Miriam wants to test the DNA again and he gets all love struck over the DNA again.
Yes, and he's like, no, she's been through enough. All it is a cheek swab. What are you worried about? She wants to do more testing. She wants to literally do more testing on the DNA she already has or get a little bit more. It's not going to be hard.
Right. And he's like, okay, I'll ask her.
Oh, gosh. The things that they thought were important, man. Crazy. So one of the other things that I didn't like about this episode is the time walk back to Sept-Tour. I literally fast forwarded through it every time I watched it because
it was unnecessary.
Totally unnecessary.
Considering that they jammed all that story about the maiden or the goddess and all of this, and then they literally revisit a scene we already saw.
Yeah.
And yes,
why?
Prove to us that you did it. Show up, and yes, it's the right night. Great. Move on.
Yeah. Or just, you know, time walk to the day that you got back to Madison or something. Like, just do it really quick. Like, show us run back to Oxford really quick and come right back. Be like, yep, it's September the 3rd. I just looked at my calendar and, you know, going back, and I get they wanted to say goodbye to Isabeau, I guess.
It was a lot of longing looks.
Yeah, it just wasn't necessary. But again, that's the pacing issue that I had with like these last 2 episodes. Is just they just focused on some things that I felt like were not important to get us to the next season, or to, even if they weren't thinking they were going to have another season, they didn't get us any farther in the story, and they annoyed me.
So you know how we talked that we had compassion for Satu after the last one. I don't know that I ever truly had like great compassion for Baldwin in the first book. And I feel like how they filmed the vote with the congregation and everything totally made me have empathy towards him. And it bothered me because I was like, he always just felt sort of like an ass, and it bugged me that that's how they filmed it. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Go ahead.
I think it's good when there are characters that are supposed to be villainous or bad, but we also are given things about them that give you a sense of compassion or a sense of like, hey, they're not always a terrible person, because it just makes them a multifaceted character, makes them more interesting to watch. I don't know. That's how I feel about those kinds of things. I like to see kind of 2 faces of villains.
Yeah,
he's not even a villain, so.
As much as we liked it about Satu, you know, I did like that about Satu. So I liked it about Baldwin too, although I don't remember going into this season or into the show thinking that Baldwin is a real villain. I just feel like he's, you know, the brother that Matthew just tiffs with, you know, for whatever reason. Like they just can't seem to get on the same page about
And I just remember
things.
You said you haven't read book 3, so
right. So there's more.
There's more, so that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Nikki, have you read book 3?
No, I started 2, but I need to go back and finish it now.
Okay, so that makes sense to me. Your feelings towards Baldwin.
Okay. So I'm gonna hate him later.
Foreshadowing.
That's fine. He's also kind of a dick. I mean, it's fine.
I mean, no, I mean, he has good and bad parts. I don't hate him as much as I hate Satu. So
okay,
yeah. One other thing I liked about this last episode is when you see Marcus and Nathaniel, you know, and them getting along, and they're like chopping the wood, or Sophie talking to Em and Sarah. Like that's one thing we haven't talked about, and I don't know if you were going to get there, Beth. So I just dived right into that.
No, that's great.
Yeah. That plays into the whole like ridge shit version of Discovery of Witches. It's like we like these characters, we want to see them interact, we want to see their cool place that they're living in. Like, just give us a few more minutes of that and less of just like looking at Isabeau like longingly and then leaving. Like, we didn't need that.
Emily, if you or anybody else doesn't know what ridge shit is, it's a hashtag that we started that we started during the 4th season of Outlander for all of the things that we wanted to see Jamie and Claire doing when they live on the ridge. It's basically all we want to see out of that season is the ridge shit. Like, we just want to see them like making pottery and feeding the cow and like
just like the fluff of the story that you love to see.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. Like the hominess of what it would have been like in Madison, especially with all of them there together. I love that aspect of this episode. And I wish it was much longer.
So much more. Like, I know Nathaniel was trying to get them to leave, and Sophie was like, no, if we can't tell these people, who can we tell? And again, you guys haven't read book 3, but it plays so much into where they're going. And
no, that's awesome.
So I'm like, there's so much foreshadowing, and I'm like, I love where this is going. So,
well, some of my favorite things about this entire series, and since we're wrapping up, we can kind of talk about some of that, is the foreshadowing of things that aren't going to pay off until much later, especially because they didn't know And as somebody who's only read through the end of book 2, I know there are things that are going to pay off later. And it makes me really excited that they bothered to put them into this first season, even if they're just small comments or, you know, tidbits, even about the way things are, you know, the set decorations and stuff like that. Like, I love that they bothered to do that, not even knowing whether or not they were going to get picked up for a season 2 and season 3. And knowing that they have been, and knowing that it's going to be filming this summer, and knowing that it's going to be on bigger networks soon, next month. If you don't know already, it'll be on AMC and BBC America. Like, give us more hope that that stuff is going to pay off in big, better ways.
Really quickly, I'm going to just tag on that. Beginning Sunday, April 7th at 9 p.m. The series will be simulcast on AMC and BBC America. So it will go right after BBC America, the simulcast of Killing Eve's second season.
Whoa, that is a really good spot for them to be in. That
That's
means
an
that they
amazing
really
spot.
want to like bolster this show. That's cool.
That's very cool.
That's good stuff.
So I'm super excited for them. And I don't know, Nikki and I are going to be at WonderCon, so we're going to try to pop into if it's a panel, if it's a screening, not sure what it is, but
Discovery of Witches.
What they've got there at WonderCon next week. So
that's so cool.
Yes.
I can't believe it's coming on after the season 2 simulcast of Killing
I'm
Eve.
shocked. That's
Killing
really
Eve is
good.
A huge hit.
I mean, Sandra Oh just won the Golden Globe for that, so it's definitely
incredible. That's great. I mean, I'm like kind of a little flabbergasted just in general. Like it was kind of a big deal that they were even being picked up by those 2 networks, and like to put it in such a great slot. Mm-hmm. Good job. I don't know what they're doing. But good job. I have high hopes for season 2.
Yeah, but I think tagging on to what you said, the fact that they are playing a long game, even at the beginning, not knowing that they would end up on these bigger channels, that they would end up following a mega show, is why it's good. They're like playing a longer game so that you're investing and not just, well, I don't need to finish this, or I can just watch it as a capsule of series 1. No, you're going to have to watch the whole thing now.
Yeah. And maybe that's why they made some of the editing choices that they did. If we want to give them a little bit of grace on some of that, if you think about them going back to Septour, if they didn't know they were going to get a second season, kind of wrapping up that bow, those characters with a little bit of like a send-off bow, and even kind of giving the Sophie and Nat story with Marcus and Miriam and everybody being in Madison, letting that be the final thing that pushes them off into the end of the season, gives it a little bit of a homier feel, makes it feel like the major danger is over and they overcame it and they made friends along the way, and they, are going to get to live happily ever after, even if it's in the past. And then they have this cute little cliffhanger, right? So, well, cute is debatable, but
the end is definitely not put a bow on it. It's like, you have to know what happens, because she looks frightened when she lands or turns around or whatever happens.
Well, really quick, right before that, they're looking at the book that Matthew has, and it's from Christopher Marlowe, who is foreshadowing for season 2. So that's, really exciting. We don't know anything.
Did they cast him? I can't remember that.
I don't know that they've cast anything for season 2 yet, as far as we know. So,
which is exciting, because that news will come out, will start to trickle out in the next month, because they are going to start production in April, but not filming, I don't think, until July. So there's going to be a lot of all of that casting news coming out really soon. So we might even have a couple more Hangout of Witches just to discuss.
We do the casting and be like, okay, here's what we know.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting. I don't love the end of this episode. I got to say really quickly, that little bubble of silence that they drive up in looks like something off of like a Princess Sophia cartoon or something. I cannot with it.
I hope it means they get, a couple more dollars for some of the CGI.
A whole lot more dollars.
Yeah, the bubble was cheesy. And
even the editing at the end, like the way, pick your foot up, set it down when I tell you to. And then like the just quick turn that you were talking about that she does is so, I just don't know if I love it.
It was jarring. It was weird to see her like, I don't know.
It's just not shot well, and then it's not edited well, and it's not a great not a great way to end a show like that. Although when you're watching it, when you're just like watching it with someone for the first time and they don't know what's going on, they're like, it's over? What's happening? Like you know, they want to see more. So when it comes down to like wanting a season 2 of something like that, it does do that for you, but it's just cheesy looking.
So the Entertainment Weekly article that I pulled up to get all this, it says it's produced by Bad Wolf. So that's J.J. Abrams' production
He's
company.
Bad Robot.
Oh, that's right. Bad Wolf. Never mind.
Bad Wolf, someone else.
That's someone else.
I follow
someone not as good.
Yeah, I follow some DP or like cinematographer or something on Instagram. I don't know how I get myself into these things. But he did work on A Discovery of Witches, and he worked on some other really big shows. So I think that speaks well for someone. I don't know if something just happened outside if you heard that, but I don't know what I'm saying. It speaks well for for the most part, how it looked this season.
I mean, there are some beautiful shots, really beautiful shots in this show. And I think there's just some episodes that are really well directed. Episode 3. But like, you know, some of it just,
some other.
And then it just needs a little help in some ways. So Kara Watkins just asked what Blurtlander thinks of Discovery of Witches. He liked it. We watched it all in 2 sittings, and he was into it. He really liked it. He thought it was better than Outlander. And he was kind of like, that's it? There's no more? Like when it was over, that's who I was parroting a minute ago was him. He wanted to see more, and there wasn't more, so he liked it. Although as I've been rewatching it, you know, for these, he's like, what are you watching this again for? Like, he's like, he'll come in for work. He's like, why is this on again? I'm like, I have a Hangout. And he's like, oh, okay. You know, but he liked it.
Yes, Joe watched it with me as well and watched all the episodes. So that speaks well.
Yes.
And hopefully it brings in some more male viewers as well.
Yeah. I think Matthew Good is a good draw.
Bad Wolf is and I'm now going to lose my Doctor Who credentials because I was like, it sounds familiar. Why do I recognize it? It's the executives behind Doctor Who launched their production company. So.
Well, that makes sense why Alex is there.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm like, why does that sound familiar? There you go.
It's okay. You don't have to know every production company. It's okay. It's okay.
We're just silently judging. I'm totally kidding.
I'm judging myself.
It's all right.
You're never going to get that wrong at trivia night now.
Yeah, I know. Now you got it. Now it's in there forever. That's what humiliation does.
I'm glad Lorena and Laura aren't watching because the TARDIS girls would really be.
They better be watching. I'm going to start requiring people to watch all the Hangouts.
Lorena's in Portugal. She's in Portugal right now. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, fine, Lorena. I guess you get a pass.
So. But this is the last one. Actually, it is the last one. I think we are done, you guys, with the Hangout of Witches. We hope that there is new news to come out soon about production and casting and I don't know, anything else. I don't know, All Souls Con in Cardiff. If any of you are going to that. Hopefully there'll be news and we will see you back here to digest some of it. And it'll be fun. So this has been fun. If this is your first one that you've ever watched, go back and watch all 4 of them. Go to the website, see what we've written about it. We'll talk about it some more. It's been a good time.
And
thanks, you guys.
Stay tuned for other episodes of different Hangouts. If you guys need something to fill your life with more That's Normal, Harry Potter and the Totally Normal Hangout podcast. I don't know.
Hangout.
I just said it wrong.
Hangout. Yeah.
Chamber of Secrets is on Thursday.
There you go. Chamber of Secrets on Thursday. And I'm sure we will probably have some sort of Game of Thrones hangout at some point.
Hang of Thrones.
Hang of Thrones. So we will not be gone. We're not gone.
We're never gone. Always in your face. All right, you guys. Good night. Have a wonderful Tuesday. We will see you very soon.